Good afternoon, fellow patriots. This is Matt Shea, and welcome to Patriot Radio, broadcasting live from deep inside the heart of the future Liberty State. Sponsored once again by On Fire Ministries, in the legacy of Dr. Stan Monteith, bringing you the story behind the story and the news behind the news, where it's not about right or left, it's about right and wrong. It's about our hope not being in man, but in Jesus Christ. About not ending in prayer, but moving to action. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Father, deliver us from the evil one.
Welcome to Patriot Radio.
And we're back with our guest today, Matt Geiger. He is the founder and the head of Verity Metals, converttogold.com. Matt, it's always great to have you on the show. A lot going on this week. Incredible.
It's amazing. Good to be with you, Pastor Matt. Good to see you.
So Treasury Secretary Besant now calling for an audit of the Federal Reserve, fundamental restructuring of the Federal Reserve, questioning the institution and calling it essentially universal basic income for economists. I mean, these are pretty heavy words that I've actually been looking for somebody to say for 20 years. How are you evaluating this?
Well, we knew it was coming. When Trump and Jerome Powell were meeting in the construction area where Trump put him on blast with that letter saying you're over budget by $1 billion. I knew this was coming because, of course, what Trump does is he's going to put you in the spotlight first, right? Create a little media event. The Federal Reserve, I mean, it's as federal as Federal Express, right? It's really a private corporation. Some would argue a hybrid organization, but I mean, it's completely illegal. The Fed, what's interesting about the Fed is they have an on-balance sheet and they have an off-balance sheet. And the on-balance sheet, I think I checked it a couple of years ago, was like $13 trillion, something insane. But their off-balance sheet is the balance sheet that they don't have to share with anybody. In my opinion, and this is just what I think. But I would bet money, if I were a betting man, I would bet that's in the hundreds of trillions, if not quadrillions of dollars.
Which sparks the comment from Besant also that this is gain of function economic policy. I mean, that was one of my favorite ones. There it is. So, I mean, what does this look like then in the next few months? I mean, you have bankers. I mean, you have bankers that are invested in this. Does the whole system collapse if you remove the Federal Reserve? Or is it just a bad investment for this small group of bankers that have been profiting off the American people for so many years?
Well, I think, what people need to understand is they need to get out of the Federal Reserve system, right? That's kind of that's really what gold and silver do, is it gets you out of that system. Even the cryptocurrencies, that keeps you in their system. As a matter of fact, that's what they were hoping to do, is get us into digital currencies through our own free will with Bitcoin and a lot of these other ones. And I'm not knocking Bitcoin. I have a bad feeling about them. But what I think people should start to understand is that you want to exit the Federal Reserve System and put your money from the Federal Reserve System into the Treasury system. Because isn't that what Trump's doing? I think what Trump's been doing. I don't think that this is just happening now all of a sudden. I think that there's been indicators over the years. I mean, if you remember in 2020, right? I don't know if it was right before COVID or right as COVID started. It was like that March timeframe of 2020. But Trump took a lot of the powers of the Federal Reserve away and put him in the power of the Treasury.
Yeah.
Right. So what I think is that was the beginning of transitioning. I think we're actually already in the process of transitioning from the Federal Reserve System into the Treasury. Right. But something's got to give. Trump has to it's almost like he's got to play this game where we're all still in the Federal Reserve System. He knows he's got the entire country's wealth still in the Federal Reserve System. He's trying to bring this money over to the Treasury system and make it as painless as possible. My fear is that it's not going to be, some easy trick that he can pull. I think that there's going to be some pain involved for people.
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, this conspiracy, and it is a conspiracy. Conspiracy is the engine of history. 2 or 3 or more people coming together to shift histories, nations, financial sectors, for example. So this started with the national bank attempt by Alexander Hamilton. That was in the founding fathers era, met with a ton of resistance. Then it came back. Andrew Jackson had to deal with it. He had to send in troops. Then it came 3 times. Yeah, and we'll talk about the details here in a second. But then it came back again with The Creature from Jekyll Island, the foremost book on that conspiracy, and it's existed to this day. Then you have the Bank of International Settlements in Basel, Switzerland, which is the the Federal Reserve for the world of all the other Federal Reserves. That's their big plan. Talk a little bit about this with Andrew Jackson first, and then let's go into a little bit more of this conspiracy and what it was meant to really do. What was this meant to usher in?
Well, Andrew Jackson dealt with it. He saw that these foreign bankers, they wanted to come in and essentially take our sovereignty through our money. I mean, if you look at it from a warfare strategy, it's brilliant, right? As somebody said, I forget who said it. I think it was the Rothschild who said it. But if you control, a country's money system, you basically own the country. So these let's call it the deep state, right? Because it's essentially what it is. I mean, it's the deep state we're dealing with today. That's why it's so important to get rid of these people once and for all. Andrew Jackson got all the people on his side. He wound up rallying the American people, woke them up, and made sure that it was really public awareness that enabled Andrew Jackson. So it wasn't just Andrew Jackson. It was actually the American people at the time that understood what was going on. They understood who these powers. They knew who their enemy was. Right. That's exactly what Trump's doing today. Is he's trying to wake everybody up and say, guys, this is the enemy. These are the people we got to fight now and forever, because they're not going to stop now. Just like you point out, they've been doing this throughout our entire country's history. What makes you think that these people are ever going to give up? So the key here is to wake up people, get the ignorance out of people, and educate them to who the true enemy is.
And I don't think it's too strong to say this was a coup against the government of the people. That's really what this was. So in the 1900s, this started to, actually I would say the late 1800s, this was still continuing after the Civil War. They wanted to institute a banking system. They had to figure out who was going to pay for it. And of course, it's going to be the people that pays for it. So you have the Federal Reserve instituted. Then immediately you've got the 16th Amendment, which arguably was not properly ratified. And I've gone into that in previous shows. But then you have the 17th Amendment, which took away the ability of state legislatures to recall their senators. And what a lot of people didn't understand is that those senators were actually making sure that the money that was coming from the state was spent constitutionally in Washington, D.C. So all of these things happen in a 2-year period. And now, if you look at it, our income taxes essentially pay the interest on the debt, and the debt is owed to the Federal Reserve System. That's, in a very quick nutshell, probably oversimplified, the scam here. What should people know about this that they probably don't know right now, Matt? And then also, what do you think Trump is going to do to expose this going forward? Because he's already done quite a bit, and obviously the Treasury Secretary is doing it almost every week.
Yeah, well, what's Trump doing now with tariffs, right? We're making tens of billions, hundreds of billions of dollars through tariffs. So I think what Trump's doing is he's putting this, for lack of a better word, these profits that he's making off other countries, he's putting them in what's called the Sovereign Wealth Fund. And the Sovereign Wealth Fund is what to be looking for right now. I would follow what he's doing with the Sovereign Wealth Fund, because that's essentially what's going to fund the government post financial collapse in this country, from what I hear and what do I know. But there's no way out of this, right? $37 trillion of debt. I mean, that's the debt they're telling us about. I mean, I think it's probably a lot more than that, but it's going to be a lot easier, believe it or not, to tear this system down and start a new one, in my view, than it would be to try to salvage the system. And why would we try to salvage the system? This is a construct of globalist, deep state, satanic cult members, right? I think what he's doing is he's going to be walking this country through bankruptcy. Donald Trump. And there's different types of bankruptcy, right? I'm no legal expert, but there's something, like a Chapter 7 where we could just say, hey, the hell with everything, split up the assets and be done with it. The creditors are screwed. My guess is looking at Trump's history through his own bankruptcies, and go figure, they made fun of him for that. So now he's got the best qualification on earth. He's going to negotiate with the creditors, both domestically and around the world, to come up with some type of deal. Move us into, I would say, rather than a new system, move us back to the old system. I don't think we're moving into something that's going to be so brand new. Sure, there'll be some technological bells and whistles, but I think it's really about moving us back to how this country was founded on a gold and silver standard. And if you read the Constitution, it specifically says gold and silver coin are our money.
That's right.
So on the subject of gold and silver, that's why I recommend to people, if somebody comes to me like, hey, Matt, what do I do? I'm new to gold and silver. I say, get into gold American Eagles, silver American Eagles. once this happens, once we move from the Federal Reserve System to the Treasury system, you have literally the fundamental asset that'll push you forward in that type of system.
Well, let's go back to the sovereign wealth fund, because this is what I'm watching as well. And the way that I'm looking at this is that Trump is positioning mining and drilling so that rare earth minerals and oil and natural gas, and a percentage of that is also going to fund the sovereign wealth fund. And it's going to be so big that he will be able to eliminate the income tax. I think he's shooting for $150,000. Anybody that makes $150,000 a year or less, or $200,000 a year or less, he'll be able to he'll eliminate the income tax. Well, then that undermines the Federal Reserve right out of the gate. That's how I'm seeing this. Then there's the replacement or the elimination of the Federal Reserve. How are you seeing this? Just being specific going forward. Is it going to be CBDC? Is it going to be something run by AI? I mean, what do you think this looks like?
I think what Trump does is he calls in the Federal Reserve, still hold our gold certificates. They don't hold the gold. They just hold the gold certificates. They're priced at, I think, $42 an ounce. You can correct me if I'm wrong. It's something like that. And I think what Trump does is he says, okay, we have to deal with tens of trillions, if not hundreds of trillions in debt. We're going to set the price of gold at $40,000 an ounce, right? And what that's going to do is that's going to create money out of thin air, and it's going to actually help keep the system running, right? Because the business of America, the best way it was put to me by a friend of mine is the business of America is business, right? And you want to keep business running. You want to keep the truckers moving across the country. Our whole, we could have a whole conversation about it, but our whole system runs on credit. Right. So if the whole credit system got shut down, we'd be screwed. The grocery stores would be empty. Right. That's how these trucks run. They all run on credit. So Trump's going to have to do something very drastic to keep the business of America running and make this transition as painless as possible. My fear is that there are going to be some road bumps here. I mean, we're getting rid of a monolithic satanic group of deep state globalists. Right. And if the price to pay is, hey, you're going to lose a little bit of your wealth in the process, so be it. I don't think Trump's thinking about, our generation, right? I think he's thinking about 6 or 7 generations from now and what America is going to look like then. And that's the way it should be.
So the Federal Reserve is a corporation given a special charter by Congress. So if a corporation goes bankrupt, you talked about different kinds of bankruptcy. If a corporation goes bankrupt, it's stuck inside that corporation and anybody that potentially is invested in it. So again, walking through this, if the Federal Reserve Trump just says, you made a bad investment, and half of the U.S. debt is wiped like this, not to foreign countries, but to the Federal Reserve System, boom, it's gone. Then the question is, who's actually invested in the Federal Reserve System? Because that's who's going to come wailing and gnashing teeth.
Exactly right. That's the globalists, right? We're not the Federal Reserve. We're going to hand them back their bankrupted corporation. And most likely, a lot of these corporations out there, they have holdings companies. Trump, these are trillion-dollar holding companies. Trump can just take these holding companies and say, all right, we're taking your money, because all these corporations, it's a racket. They're all involved in this criminality. The deep state globalists are pervasive, not just through the banking system, but through the corporations. They're everywhere.
So when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about kind of a shocking news story today that Robert Mueller was found in a memory care facility conveniently when we return.
What if I told you could convert your 401k or your IRA into gold? While your retirement is being beat up by a volatile stock market and inflation, it could instead be resting safely in physical gold at a place of your own choosing, including your own business. Look, gold has increased 50% in just the last year. Stock market, it's been nothing but a roller coaster. So protect your retirement from market chaos by calling VERITY Metals today.
So the Russian collusion hoax is what we're going to talk about next. Back here with Matt Geiger, VERITY Metals, converttogold.com. All right. We have all of this come out with Tulsi Gabbard, and I love the meme I saw, Employee of the Month. That was pretty good. And you see all of this stuff, all of the lies now getting exposed and unwound. And now it's coming to, okay, we're going to start subpoenaing people. We're going to start holding people to account. And conveniently, they find Robert Mueller in a memory care facility. Can't remember anything, of course, because that would be really, really hard if he did, wouldn't it?
I mean, it tells you that it tells us that what they're going to be doing to Obama, to Brennan, to Comey, to all these different, Strzok Page, you name it, or they know that these are real indictments. For all the people out there that are saying, oh, nothing's going to happen, nothing's going to happen. No, something's going to happen. There's a reason why Robert Mueller is faking having memory problems, right? In my opinion, and I could be wrong about this, but in my opinion, Bruce Willis, who's, obviously a major celebrity in Hollywood, who probably knows a lot of the dirt on the Hollywood, pedophile elites. He just all of a sudden at, 60 years of age comes down with dementia. He doesn't know anything, right? So I would be looking for a lot more of dementia patients coming out here in the coming weeks and months.
Very fascinating, isn't it? Well, so the Russia collusion hoax clearly is set up. Putin, now the Kremlin, I think, said this morning that Putin will meet with Trump in the coming days. Seems like some things are being called to account right now. I mean, is Putin going to actually be serious in ending the war in Ukraine, or does this continue into the near term?
I think he is serious about ending the war. I mean, it's so tough to tell. I mean, what do we know? We're just kind of bystanders watching the movie play. I'm confident that Trump and Putin are going to come to some type of an agreement. I think he will end the war. I think there's going to be a lot of developments both in Russia, among other government criminality coming from the Obama administration. You can see they're trying to start turning this whole Epstein narrative. They're trying to spin it once again, that Epstein is just full of it, right? Because they're realizing that that's going to come out and it's not going to be Trump that's implicated. It's going to be all of their own people, including the people in the media that are reporting this to you.
Right.
So I think Trump is finally at a point. It's almost like the way I think of it is these last, 7, 8 years, Trump has positioned himself for this moment in time. Now he has a leverage, right? As he said the other day, I was the hunted, now I'm the hunter. And when he says stuff like that, pay attention.
So the next 6 months, I'm hearing that up into January is going to be very intense here in the United States. I don't know what you're hearing. This is what I'm hearing. And in particular, by the end of August, there are going to be some dramatic things shaking loose. What are you hearing? What can you share with everybody listening and watching?
I heard Hillary's going to be indicted in October, late October, 3 days before Halloween. Who knows, right? We've never gotten dates right. Certainly, I think they're going to start going after Comey, Brennan. I think that this is going to be, you're going to see indictments. You're going to see the media scrambling. They're going to be spinning stories. They're going to be making stuff up. They have these women that are probably about to, I think it's 24 women that are going to start coming out saying that Trump raped them 100 years ago. They're just going to throw everything at this that they can. And I think as they do this, that's where I do think, to your other question, that's where I do think Trump gets an agreement with Putin, right? So as they're saying trying to spin the narrative, now Trump's actually creating the peace, right? And you'll start seeing him really roll out his real agenda. We haven't seen Trump's real agenda yet. Keep that in mind, folks. You haven't seen what Trump is really going to do for this country. Now is when you're going to start to see it, and I think it's going to be glorious.
So what do you think that real agenda is?
Well, for one, bringing us back to sound money, right? Getting rid of debt, getting rid of the income tax, getting rid of corruption, bringing justice to politicians who, he starts with Adam Schiff and Letitia James with mortgage fraud. That is just the tip of the iceberg. I think what he's going to do with these people is he's going to keep these people wrapped up in court for the rest of their lives based on the criminality that ththese people are involved in. Each case of criminality, these people are going to spend their money on lawyers, on legal fees, you name it. And, I think of it like this, Eric Trump calls himself the most subpoenaed person in history. Okay. Poor kid. Everywhere he went, he'd have to be subpoenaed. Imagine being him and the amount of money that Trump and the Trump organization had to pay just to be wrapped up in these court cases. You don't think that there's going to be payback here? You don't think that these people are going to suffer too? You're going to start seeing these people suffer. He's no longer the hunted. He is the hunter.
How about our foreign adversaries? Some of the jihadi groups that have infiltrated the United States, China, What do you think happens with those entities?
I think it's a scary situation. I think there are terrorist cells here. I think that these ICE raids have probably been very affected about not just getting rid of gang members and whatnot. It would be my guess, and it's probably not reported in the media, that they know where these Al-Qaeda cells are. They know where these ISIS cells are. And they can use the guise of, ICE raids to get these people either out of the country or in a place like Alligator, Alcatraz. And what he's essentially doing is he's taking their foot soldiers off the battlefield. So when this real stuff goes down, instead of having, an army of, let's say, for every 100, he's narrowed it down to, now they got to deal with 10 people at the moment where the real precipice hits. So I think that they're taking they're taking players off the battlefield, off the chessboard, and it takes time. I don't think we're hearing the full story about these ICE raids, but just stay safe. If you can get a firearm, protect yourself, protect your family. Just prepare yourself. That's all you can do. Take care of yourself.
Putin, it was downplayed in the media. Putin is facing a pretty significant economic downturn in Russia. His finance minister came out and admitted it finally, I think last week. You see, the specter of tariffs on other countries buying oil from Russia. Now Putin's coming to the table. I think there is a clear effect. How about China, though? I mean, it seems like there is some massive internal struggle. They're suffering an economic downturn. They're being deprived of the economic ability to wage war and invade Taiwan. How does this look in the next 90 days for relationships with China?
Well, also keep in mind, what did Trump do is he pulled away a lot of the partners of China, other countries, and made better deals with them. So China was very much depending on those relationships that they had with all these other countries. And effectively, what did Trump do? He pulled away a lot of their trade partners and brought them into the United States for, hey, you build your factory, you build, your business in the United States, you're not going to pay any tariffs. And you're going to get a great deal on taxation, right? Build here. So he's really incentivized. He's beat China at their own game, created better incentives, and at the same time, China's suffering so badly economically that it's going to be very hard for them to push forward without coming to the table with Trump.
One of the other agendas that we didn't get to that it really looks like Trump is headed toward is removing the veil and the fallacy surrounding elections. Talked about the census this week. Redoing the census. Obviously, the redistricting issue in Texas is coming to the fore, that non-citizens were counted in the apportionment of those districts. We're not actually talking about gerrymandering. Gerrymandering is when you're drawing just oddly shaped maps to come to a certain conclusion. We're talking about a fundamental reset so that only citizens are being counted when the apportionment of congressmen, congresswomen is set, and the apportionment of our electoral votes. So with that said, how does this look in the next 90 days? I think this happens. I think Texas, it happens, but then you have all the blue states that are threatening retaliation.
Well, how are they going to retaliate? And I actually said that a couple weeks ago in a show, is that it's really about going to the census, right? The Census Bureau. That's where all this stuff's happening. So, it's going to threaten the seats of, how many Democrat politicians? I think it's like dozens of them. They're going to lose their seat, right? What we're going to, with the ICE raids, now you understand why the Democrats love their illegal immigrants so much, is because they keep them in office. Right. So as Trump cleans up the system, I think what it's going to require, and I think it's probably a good idea, but I think at some point, everybody's just going to have to go and re-register to vote. You go with your birth certificate, your passport, your driver's license, whatever. You go to the DMV or whatever, government building, you re-register to vote, right? And you don't clean up the voter rolls. The voter rolls are already tarnished. There's no going back from those. I think you have to reset the country's elections and go back to paper ballots. And when you do that, it's a new day. It's a new day in this country.
It is, absolutely. A long time ago as well, and I'm just going to shift gears here a little bit, Robert Kiyosaki wrote a book about Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and about the prophetic idea, but it was really not, prophetic in a spiritual sense, just in a reasoned sense. And when the baby boomers begin to retire, there's going to be such an outflow of the stock market that it's going to hit America in a negative way, right? And so you have retirement accounts that would be negatively impacted. You would have a bunch of other things happening in our economy that would be negatively impacted. Probably chief among them, who do these boomers pass their businesses on to if there's not a demographic that can actually fill those roles? How does that look here in the next 3-4 years?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to have a major shakeup. I mean, it's probably going to lead to a lot of money exiting the stock market, right? That's obviously going to have a major impact there. I think you have to restructure the stock market. I think the concept of the stock market's great. It's been so corrupted, and it's almost become a Las Vegas on steroids. I think it's a very dangerous place to be. And I think, you're exactly right. There's going to be a lot of changes, not just there, but in the monetary system, you name it. And not to, beat a dead horse here, but this is why I think getting into something like precious metals, specifically U.S. coin, is so important right now, because we don't know what's going to happen, right? People talk about uncertainty. This is the definition of uncertainty, right? When you have a total system restructure. And I think what people should really consider doing is pulling back, getting to safety, because I'm the first one to say gold and silver is not a great investment, believe it or not. Imagine the gold guy saying that to you. It's really a wealth protector, right? So this is what this is going to do, is it's going to keep your money strong. So as these changes happen, you're not sitting there holding the bag of, a changing system and failures from the top.
And that can be done with your retirement account.
Exactly right.
Matt Geiger, it's always great. I love our conversations, getting right to the root of the conspiracy that's out there. Blessings to you. I really appreciate you. We'll talk with you next week and keep up the fight.
God bless.
ConvertToGold.com. If that resonated with you, or you're just thinking, I don't know what to do, transfer your IRA and 401k into retirement funds, and your retirement funds into gold and silver backed accounts. That's really what this is all about. So you have a wealth protector. And, as Matt said, so with that, we are going to end with what you can do. And here's what you can do right now. It's incumbent during this period of chaos, this chaotic time, fundamental restructuring back to what the original intent of the founding fathers was, and back to really the truth and reality in the system, so that the manipulation, corruption goes. You have to be prepared. So please prepare your family, your friends. This is the time to be talking about it. And I know a lot of people are saying, I don't need to be prepared. I kind of did that. Trump's in office. Don't need to worry about it. Break the normalcy bias. Now is the time to prepare, because the shakeup is here already. And yes, it's going to be a bumpy road, but we're going to get through this together as Americans. And remember, preparation really takes the fear out of everything. Preparation also allows you to love your friends and family in a crisis. This is Matt Shea. Thank you for joining me on Patriot Radio today. May God bless all of you. He is making this generation the greatest one. The awakening is here. So keep up the fight.